I am Deborah. I am from Cana in Galilee. It is a quiet, rural village. We like one another, and we get along, most of the time. We work hard, and we help one another when there's a need. Maybe you've heard there's going to be a wedding. Let me tell you something about our wedding customs. They're sort of different that I hear than yours are in this day and age. The couple has been engaged for a time. They've been working hard so they could have a home of their own. When it comes time to send out the word about the wedding, I understand that in your days that there's something that an invitation is printed on nice, heavy paper, and then it is mailed to family and friends. And that sometimes there's a little card inserted in the envelope, an RSVP. It's something that lets the couples know whether or not you're going to come to their wedding and how many of you will be coming. Well, in our community, we know there's been an engagement, and at some point there will be a wedding. So when that word goes out that the time has come, the people hear, next week, Jacob and Sarah are getting married. And the word is passed from yard to yard at the marketplace and at the village well about the wedding. And so you see, our weddings take place over several days. And there's not any way to know how many people might come. And so you don't know how much food and wine to prepare. We know that everyone who can will come, but not that everyone will make it. So the word goes out, and the day of the wedding, and the groom and his friends, they kind of gather at a meeting place. And the bride and her friends and families, they meet at another place, at a different locations. There are two processions that go through the town, and they're spreading the word and inviting everyone to come to the synagogue. And after the ceremony, there's one procession with the canopy that's over the bride and grooms as they are carried through the community, up and down every street and every alley, so that all may congratulate them and be invited to the festivities at their home. So you see, it's really hard to know how many people are going to be there for all those days, the food and the wine, especially the wine. Our rabbi says, if there is to be joy, there needs to be wine. So, sounds like my kind of rabbi. So we gather, and I offered, as many in the community did, to help serve the food. Mary of Nazareth was there. She was there with her son, Jesus, a few of his disciples, and some more family. I met her briefly as I was scurrying around trying to get platters of food and pitchers of wine onto the tables. As I was serving, I kind of observed that we were getting a little low on wine. So I whispered to the master of ceremonies and told him that we were about out of wine. Mary overheard, and she went over to speak to Jesus. And he said, "What concern is that to you and me?" Mary just said to us, "Do whatever he tells you to do." Well, there were 6 big jars that hold 20 to 30 gallons of water. And Jesus told us to fill them. Well, you know, we had all those gallons of water because it is our custom that when people arrive at the door to provide water for them to wash, you know, to wash away the dust of the road. So those were the jars that were almost out of water. There were so many people there that Jesus said, fill those with water. Well, fortunately, one of the helpers had a cart nearby, so we could put the jars on the carts and haul them to the village well. The clay jars are really heavy, and when they're filled with water, they are really heavy. So we were fortunate that we could leave them on the carts while we filled them with water and then take the cart back to the house in the village. When we got there, we told Jesus that we had filled the jars and they were here. And he said, fill a cup with water and take it to the head steward. Well, I wasn't really excited about that. You see, Cana has a marsh at the south end of town, and that water seeps into our water supply. Cana's water, it smells, and it has an unpleasant taste. So it was with reluctance that I offered the cup to the steward. He took a sip, and I stepped away. I did not want to hear what he would have to say. But then he took a longer, deeper drink from the cup. And he called to the bridegroom and said, most everyone serves the finest wine first and the inferior wine last. But you have saved the finest wine for last. You know, I don't know how Jesus did that. None of us who filled the jars with water knew how he had turned that water into the finest wine. How could that be? So I started to pay more attention to the news that came to Cana about Jesus, his teachings, and the miracles he performed. And you know, the strangest thing, he didn't just talk to the Jews, but he talked to everyone, to foreigners, to our enemies, to women. Well, he even welcomed children to come and to listen. That was really strange. I couldn't understand, and then we heard that the Roman authorities had arrested Jesus along with the Jewish authorities, that our Roman oppressors then crucified him. My heart was heavy. I wish that I had left and followed him. It was so hard. Jesus, you know, he upset and confused a lot of people. The things that he said and his actions, They were pretty outlandish, it seemed. You know, he spoke about loving our enemies. Loving our enemies. And then he told the story about the Good Samaritan. Then he went to the home of a Roman centurion who is a soldier of our Roman oppressors, and he healed his young daughter. And then he spoke to a Samaritan woman at a public well. Well, you know, that is more than outlandish. You see, single Jewish males do not speak to women in public who are not part of their family. And even worse, a Samaritan? They're our enemies. We have nothing to do with him. I mean, we will travel miles on foot out of the way to avoid walking over Samaritan land. But Jesus accepted the Samaritan woman. She took the good news to her village, and they became followers of Jesus. Amazing. Jesus, when he was teaching, some of the disciples, parents brought their children to Jesus to listen to him. And the disciples, they pushed them away. Jesus scolded them, and he welcomed the children to come to him. You see, women and children in our society, they don't have a voice. But Jesus welcomed them. I don't understand what happened to Jesus. I don't understand how he could turn water into wine. I couldn't understand why he would want us to love our enemies, especially the Samaritans. But you know, the rabbi said to us that wine gives joy. But you know what I believe? I believe that Jesus brings joy. You know, Jesus spoke words that shocked and amazed by his actions many people. He just said such strange things. But you know, I believe that what really brings joy is Jesus. And when we reach out with kindness, compassion, acceptance, and love, the people come to know Jesus. They come to hear of God's love, and they find joy in their hearts. It's hard. It's hard to follow the teachings of Jesus. But you know, when I make a small step even, it lightens my heart and gives me joy. Yes, Jesus turned the water into wine that day at the wedding and brought joy to the festivities. But I believe that it is when we have Jesus in our hearts and we follow his teachings of reaching out with love, acceptance, compassion, kindness, that's when we have true joy in our hearts. In the heart of Longmont, we welcome people from all walks of life. And we are also a faith community that strives to live up to the slogan, open hearts, open minds, open doors. In these troubled times in the United States, where rampant hate and racism is being encouraged by certain groups, and where our schools have become killing grounds instead of places for students to come and to have their minds expanded with education. And it's where people with different faith beliefs are being targeted with violent acts. As a church, we, the Heart of Longmont, are active in our community spreading God's love. But not just in Longmont, also out into the world as we support our global outreach ministries. In the midst of all the hate and violence, do you know there really are signs of hope, acts of compassion and kindness and acceptance? In the 60s, Jackie DeShane wrote the song, "Put a little love in your heart. Another day goes by, the children still cry. Put a little love in your heart. If you want the world to know we won't let hatred grow, put a little love in your heart." When you listen to the news and you hear about the genocide in the Ukraine, on another mass shooting in the United States, remember, there are signs of hope through acts of kindness by individuals and by groups who are spreading what may seem like, those little tiny mustard seeds that Reverend David spoke of recently. Well, it may seem like we're only spreading little tiny seeds of hope. But remember, the smallest of seeds becomes a big tree. And those small acts of love become a healing presence in our community and in the world. So remember, when you're offering a smile to someone when you're shopping, or that you are bringing food for our center or for the blessing box, or you're preparing a meal for Chef's Table or for Hope, or you're writing a check for the United Methodist Committee on Relief, UMCOR, or you are lifting a prayer, remember that you are making a difference in someone's life and bringing good into the world. Jackie DeShane also wrote another song. What the world needs now is love, sweet love, not just for some, but for everyone. So as the Heart of Longmont and as individuals, let us continue to go forth into the world, spreading the love of God. Thanks be to God.